We do have a quorum, and the clerk has advised me that we have one member appearing virtually, has been sound tested, and our sound is fine. Translation is being done remotely today, and that has been checked as well. With that, committee members, I will call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 102 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills, Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Pursuant to the order of reference of Wednesday, October the 18th, 2023, the committee will begin the clause-by-clause consideration of Bill C-319, an act to amend the Old Age Security Act. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to standing orders. Members are attending in person and virtually by Zoom. You could choose to participate in the official language of your choice by using the translation services with your headset in the room. If you're appearing virtually, click on the world icon at the bottom of your surface and choose the official language of your choice. I would like to advise members, please be conscious of our translators and keep your earpiece away from the mic. As it causes popping, which can be harmful to the translators. A reminder as well that all comments should be directed through myself as chair. Please, in the room, raise your hand to be recognized. Those appearing virtually, use the raised hand icon, and I will recognize you. Finally, I would like to introduce Mr. Kevin Wagden, Director, Old Age Security Policy and Legislation from the Department of Employment and Social Development. Mr. Wagden is present to answer questions you may have as required. As well, we have Legislative Counsel with us as well for any questions on the particular bill. I have a question. Madame Shabat, is Madame LaRouche joining us? No?
Sheila?
I am here.
I don't understand your question. Do you repeat, please, Ms. Chair?
Is Madame LaRouche joining us?
No.
No? Okay.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
I didn't notice this before, but in fact, I am getting some feedback in the earpiece when you're speaking. Ms. Gray pointed it out, and yeah.
How about now with the interpretation of my regular voice? Are you getting sound quality issues now? It's better? It could have been one of the mics. Ms. Gray, is it okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's sort of like an echo, like you're talking and then we're hearing it in our ear about a couple seconds later.
It's because they're virtual. Translation's virtual.
So we're hearing what you're saying twice.
Yeah.
The last, a couple weeks ago, had that happen, there was a delay.
Just give us a...
It's not, you just have to get used to it. It's not.
It's fine, obviously, on the French line.
When you speak in English, it's doubled up.
Are you telling me you do not want to hear me twice? Politely? I get it. If it becomes problematic, I'm being told it's fine. It's meeting the quality standards. If it does become an issue, get my attention. So, are we ready to begin clause by clause of Bill C-319? Clause 1. Madame Zerillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do have an amendment to Clause 1 that I believe was circulated in both official languages to the committee. Can you just verify?
That's correct, Madame Zerillo.
Okay. And how would you
committee
like me to
members
proceed? Do you want me to
as-
just read the clause by clause amendment?
I'm not hearing her now. Yes, Madame Zerillo, I
Okay.
have your amendment. You wish to read it?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we did hear from witnesses that the cap was could be higher, and we believe, the NDP believe, that the cap should be higher on being able to have employment
Chair,
income
point
before.
of order, just for a sec, sorry. Can we have, you turn the mic up though, so we can hear MP Zarello? Just turn that mic up a bit.
Excuse me, Ms. Zerillo, just, there is a... Yeah, I'm not hearing you well either. Okay, could you begin again, Madame Zerillo?
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
good.
Chair. So, yeah,
Okay.
so I do have an amendment to Clause 1. The NDP believes that the limit on the income income allowed before clawback should be raised on this bill. So I will read my amendment that Bill C-319 in Clause 1 be amended by replacing lines 17 to 21 on page 1 with the following. Roman numeral 1, the lesser of $13,000 and the combined amount, and Roman numeral 2, if the combined amount is greater than $13,000, the lesser of $13,000 and half of the amount by which the combined amount exceeds $13,000. And I can give some explanation or an example of that if needed, Mr. Chair.
I will allow an explanation, Madame Zerillo. Then I have Mr. Van Bynen on a point of order. Mr. Van Bynen? Okay. Madame Zerillo?
So thank you very much. So as I said, we're looking at increasing the cap of income allowed to be earned before clawback to $13,000. That's what we're asking for. And how this would work, that it would mean that that it would be, the amount would be of income would be exempt, the lesser of $13,000 or whatever they earn. So example, if someone earned $14,000, the exemption would be 13, and the difference between the 13,000 and the 14,000 being $1,000, half of it would I guess be clawed back, if that's the language you want to use, that it would be clawed back, and the resident or the worker would be able to earn $13,500. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madame Zerillo. Mr. Van Boynen, did you have a...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This substantially changes the parts of the bill, and I was just wondering if you could clarify as to whether or not this motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Van Bynen. As you recall this morning, the speaker was clear in the chamber on the power of committees. My role as your chair is simply to conduct the meeting, and I will give my ruling on the amendment proposed by Madame Zerillo, and that will answer your question, Mr. Van Bynen. But as I indicated, the speaker was clear in the chamber this morning on the scope of amendments at committees, but committees still give their direction. I will briefly, generally. Did you have your hand up, Ms. Roberts?
Ask a question for clarity purposes. So my question is, 13,000, is that on the, so say, for example, we have someone that's self-employed, is that on the self-employed net income or on the gross income?
I'll ask
That's just a
Mr. Wagon
clarification.
to
Please,
give a
thank you.
technical on that.
Thank you. So the exemption would apply to the total amount of the person's employment income or self-employment income combined after their self-employment or deductions had been made.
And expenses, right?
Expenses, yes.
So it's net.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clearing that up.
Madame Chabot, did you have a question?
Je peux commenter?
May I comment? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Listen, yeah, I do have echo. Apparently, it happens quite often with when we have a remote interpretation. I'm sorry, but I'm hearing myself talk, and it's very tiring. I'm going to stop, and because I'm hearing myself right now. I'm hearing myself talking.
Actually, thank you, Madame Chabot. I'll ask the clerk to speak to that.
So, members, we did verify, and I did receive confirmation that there is feedback a little bit, but it's common in the barometers expected for the remote interpretation program.
When did we start having remote interpretation?
My understanding is that the whips, they made the decision when they came back in 2024.
Okay. With that, seeing no further questions, you've heard clearly the amendment that was proposed by Madame Zarillo. Oui.
Alors, je
Yes.
vais parler en m'écoutant parler.
So I'm going to be talking while listening to myself talking on the amendment of my colleague, Mrs. Arillo. It's not that I don't want the most amount of money be returned to people, but I just want to remind everybody of the objective of this bill. The first one was to increase, of course, to increase this by 10% for 65 years old and old and up. So we have this objective. The other objective is to increase the part of the working revenue that could be granted without having to reduce the guaranteed supplement income. It went from $3,500 to $5,000 in the bill. We ask that it be increased from $5,000 to $6,500. I want to remind you that it is not an objective to make it is not an objective to force people who are receiving this pensions to go back to work, but we also don't want to penalize them. Sometimes, you know what they say, don't fix what's not broken. You will remember when we heard the testimonies, Madame Zarillo asked other witnesses if there were amendments, and I think that the people testified. They were clear. What they want is that the committee be behind the bill so that it can please go to a second reading, be returned in chamber so it can continue moving forward. So I am not going to agree with this amendment. Thank you, Madame Chabot.
The amendment has been moved, and I gave latitude in some discussion. As chair, I must rule on admissibility as dictated by House of Commons procedure and practice. Bill C-319 seeks to amend the Old Age Security Act by raising the exemption for a person's employment income or self-employed earnings that is taken into account in determining the amount of the guaranteed income supplement from $5,000 to $6,500. The amendment, as proposed by Madame Zarrillo, attempts to increase further that amount to $13,000, which in turn would provide to some people access to a greater benefit than the one they would without the increased deduction, creating a new and distinct spending to be drawn from the Treasury. As House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 3rd edition, states on page 772, since an amendment may not infringe upon the financial initiative of the Crown, it is inadmissible as it imposes a charge on the public treasury, or if it extends the objects or purposes or relaxes the conditions and qualifications specified in the royal recommendation. As precedent dictates to me as chair, and the advice I receive, and in my opinion, and for the above-mentioned reason, the amendment proposes to increase spending related to the old age security benefits, which imposes a charge on the public treasury to a level superior to the one already provided in the bill. Therefore, I rule the amendment inadmissible. Seeing no further discussion, shall clause 1 carry? Carried. Clause 1 carried. Shall clause 2 carry? Carried. Seeing no dissension, do we want to record it in each one of those? I'm going to do a recorded vote on clause 2. Madam Clerk? We'll go back to shall clause 1 carry. I want to have a recorded vote on it. Clause 1 carry. Recorded vote.
Mr. Fragiscaros?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Mr. Coteau? Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray? Yes. Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Yes.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zarrillo?
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, nays contre 0. Okay.
Clause 1 carried. Carried. Shall clause 2 carry? Ms. Gray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just before moving on here, I'd like to move a motion, please. And this has been circulated following all procedure. So I'd like to move that given that the Liberal Minister for Housing recently stated, quote, I think it's a generational moral failure and that there are people sleeping without a roof over their head in a country as wealthy as Canada. I won't be able to say with a straight face that I have properly addressed the housing crisis if we still have to walk past people who are sleeping on the streets in Canada, unquote. The committee concur in the minister's remarks and report them to the House. And this should be very simple. It's not asking for extra work on the committee, and I'd like to move that. Thank you.
Stop the discussion at this moment. It's quite in order. As I'm moving from clause to clause, I had already called clause 2. We have to deal with clause 2. But after we deal with clause 2, it's in order for you to repeat your motion. So the committee, we're dealing with clause 2. Recorded vote.
Mr. Fragiscaros?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Yes. Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen? Yes. Mrs. Gray? Yes. Mrs. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Yes.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zarrillo?
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0. Okay.
Clause 2 is carried. You want the floor now, Ms.? Okay. Ms. Gray, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I would like to move the following motion, that given that the Liberal Minister for Housing recently stated, quote, "I think it's a generational moral failure that there are people sleeping without a roof over their head in a country as wealthy as Canada. I won't be able to say with a straight face that I have properly addressed the housing crisis if we still have to walk past people who are sleeping on the streets in Canada," unquote. The committee concur in the Minister's remarks and report them to the House. And this should be very easy to deal with here, Mr. Chair. It's not asking for a study of the committee, and it is a work that can be done in the House of Commons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. I've been advised the motion is in order. Debate on the motion of Ms. Gray. Mr. Fragas-Catos.
Thank you, Chair. I have no problem with the with concurring in the minister's remarks. What I do have a challenge with is the what follows after the last comma. The committee concur in the minister's remarks and report them to the House. All of us know, as experienced parliamentarians, that that is intended to generate a concurrence debate in the House of Commons, taking away valuable time from the legislative agenda and standing in the way of valuable measures being passed to the benefit of Canadians. So with that, I wish to introduce the following amendment, that the words after the final comma and the last sentence, those words being "the committee concur in the minister's remarks and report them to the House," be stricken. Everything else remain the same. So the comma would be changed to a period put after the word Canada.
We have an amendment, so now the debate will be on the amendment of Mr. Fragas-Catos. I have Madame Ferrari and Mr. Aitchison on the amendment of Mr. Fragas-Catos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much. I think folks watching at home must just be a little bit stunned at what they've heard from the Liberal member saying that this will waste valuable time in the legislature to talk about the housing crisis. This is exactly what we were elected to do, to my member opposite. So absolutely a concurrence debate is not wasting anyone's time, through you, Mr. Chair. And to reiterate this motion that my colleague, Ms. Gray, has put forward, these are the minister's words. These are the minister's words of the failure of this government. This is the minister's words saying that people are not housed. And again, I think it's a generational moral failure that there are people sleeping without a roof over their head in a country as wealthy as Canada. I won't be able to say with a straight face that I have properly addressed the housing crisis if we still have to walk past people who are sleeping on the streets in Canada. And the Liberal member now has put forward an amendment to take out the next part of this motion that says the committee concur in the minister's remarks and report them to the House, because he doesn't want a debate in the House to talk about this Liberal failure. This is the biggest crisis facing our country right now, and he thinks it's a waste of time to debate this in the House, Mr. Chair, through you. So absolutely, what a nonsensical amendment, and I would challenge him and ask him again, if he is, and the parliamentary secretary to housing, no doubt, should know that absolutely we should be spending our time to talk about this and to come up with solutions. If it is our job and they are so collaborative, then bring it to the House, let's debate it, and let's solve this problem. So that would be my remarks to the member opposite. Thank you.
Thank you. The debate is on the amendment of Mr. Fragas-Catos. I have Mr. Aitchison, Madame Chabot, and Mr. Long. Mr. Aitchison, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm actually, I guess I'm not surprised by this amendment because, you know, it's become obvious. I was in the House earlier today, and they were talking about how, you know, they need to extend sittings because conservatives get in the way by opposing this government. And you know, this isn't opposing anything. This is actually a discussion. We'd like to have a discussion in the House about, you know, what I think are fairly profound statements by the minister. I mean, we've tried to have him come here. That's no good. We don't like that because, well, I still don't know why. My colleague has been instructed not to let the minister come here. We don't want to talk about this in the House. There's, you know, my colleague Ms. Ferrari pointed out, and I think quite accurately, this is the challenge of our time. This is the crisis of a generation. We're talking about, you know, the number of homeless in this country at record highs. The crisis exists at at all points on the spectrum of the housing continuum, and I appreciate that the parliamentary secretary to the ministers obviously eager to make sure we don't talk too much in the House about their record on the file, but perhaps a discussion about what the minister said in the House would reveal some new ideas for this government to propose in terms of working with municipalities and the provinces to address specifically the homelessness situation and the growing number of Canadians who are unhoused and the growing number of people who literally are dying in the streets. The number of homeless people in Toronto who don't survive the streets is growing. And so I just find it fundamentally flooring that the Liberals don't want to have a discussion about ideas, about proposed solutions, things that, as a House of Commons, as an elected body, where the issues of the day of this country are supposed to be discussed and debated. That is the purpose of the place, or so I thought. Why they wouldn't want to have those discussions? It smacks of deflection and cover up, and frankly, I'd be embarrassed if I was in his shoes. So.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. Madame Chabot, sur l'amendement.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the amendment, I agree with the amendment, and I'm going to explain why. Everyone here is in agreement with the fact that there is a serious housing crisis in Canada, that homelessness has reached record highs, not just in Quebec, everywhere. It's something we've never seen before, and that something has to be done. And the minister, and I don't want to be partisan here, the best way to find solutions is to try to have motions for studies that would allow us to go into depth into the problematic. And I don't think this is going to allow us to go into the details of the problem. I think that we are taking into account what the minister has said. And when the minister came, and we hope that he will be able to come back, there are motions that we can study. And I think that successive governments and the funds that have been invested in housing have brought us to the situation that we're faced with today. There are a lot of motions already in terms of housing and homelessness, and I think it might be better to conduct a study regarding the issues that we are faced with today in order to try to find solutions and to improve the situation rather than the motion that is before us.
And then Ms. Roberts and Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. And Chair, first and foremost, I want to correct what MP Ferrari said about the minister admitting the failure of this government. He did no such thing. He commented generally on the challenges that we face as a country that I think we all agree have been unfolding over many, many years and many, many governments. For some reason, the members opposite do not want to talk about the provinces and their responsibility with respect to housing. And I mean, there's question period. I don't believe there's been a question asked of the Minister of Housing for a while now. There's all kinds of other opportunities. The minister's been here personally several times and answered questions. I guess where I come from is I also want to hear solutions from the other side too, not just build the houses, axe attacks, and cut crime. Like, what are the actual solutions put on the table to build more homes, as opposed, what I hear right now is, blame local mayors. And again, for some reason, And maybe it's because there are conservative premiers across the country mainly, but there's not a word about the responsibility that the provinces play in this role. So thanks for that. I just want to reiterate that the minister in no way said, admitted failure of this government. I think we know the minister, we know he's trying to deal with a very, very serious problem. He's called it an emergency himself, and it's going to take some time. And I believe that we are on the right path, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts, then Ms. Gray, and Mr. Aitchison. Then I see Ms. Ferrari with your hand up on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I hear that, you know, it's one of the things that you said that we have no plan. We do have a plan. First of all, we have to build homes. We cut the red tape. We encourage builders to build homes, affordable homes, so that people have a place to live. The challenges that we're facing today, it's not just one area, it's right across the entire country. I spent the week speaking to my seniors who have to sell their home and move in with their children because not only can they not afford their home any longer, they can't even afford rent. And there's no rental opportunities for them to house themselves. This is an embarrassing situation. This is not the Canada that our parents and grandparents came to. They came to a Canada, land of promise. And right now, that promise is gone. There's no hope. We need to recreate that hope. So why are we not acting more quicker to allow the development of homes so people don't have to live on the streets? I think that this is an important issue. I think it's an issue that we all have to face, and that I think we should come together and come up with some solutions. We have a solution. Let's cut the red tape. Let's build the homes. Let's give people an opportunity to live properly and not on the streets.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Ms. Gray on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to speak to this amendment, which the Liberals have put forth to remove discussing in the House of Commons for a discussion and a debate on housing in the House of Commons, specifically on the housing minister's comments on that there's a moral failure having people live on the streets, and for the Liberals to bring forth this motion to not debate this in the House of Commons just shows that it's not a priority for them. And so it's really too bad that they brought this motion forward, and I hope that the other opposition parties can vote against this amendment to the motion and then vote for our original motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr. Aitchison on the amendment.
Yeah, I want to point out that although my Liberal colleagues maybe don't like the slogans, Conservatives have proposed some solutions. We've proposed all kinds of ideas. In fact, you know, it'd be a great opportunity for us to have a conversation in the House about the Housing Accelerator Fund, for example, which we've been, you know, promised will deliver more homes by doing deals with cities, who I guess the current government has finally acknowledged as part of the problem in this circumstance. But the fact of the matter is, we've asked for the agreements. We don't know what's in those agreements. All we know is what we can highlight from the news media. And of course, when you dig a little deeper, you find out that the cities that they've done these deals with are promising to do certain things, but none of them actually put in place. As an example, permitting fourplexes as of right in any residential zone. That requires a zoning amendment change. Not one of those municipalities has actually done that. So I'm actually calling this the Pay for Promises program, which is kind of the way this government operates. But we could talk about that in the House of Commons if we had the opportunity to take the minister's comments, report that in the House, and actually ask him directly about the Pay for Promises program as opposed to the Rewarding Results program that a Conservative government would offer. But I guess, you know, this is the point, I guess, is that instead of having those debates in the House of Commons where we're supposed to have them, this government would rather hide behind their procedures and not talk about this kind of stuff in the House of Commons. So I find that disappointing that they have such disrespect for the chamber. But it'd be a great opportunity propose some more ideas instead of just more photo ops.
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. I have Ms. Ferrari on the amendment.
Thank you. To this amendment that the Liberals have put forward, that they don't want to speak in the House of Commons and debate and waste, in their words, valuable time to talk about the housing crisis. And to my colleague's point that the minister hasn't admitted failure, this is just facts. Like, the rent has doubled, housing prices have doubled in the last 8 years under this Liberal government. That's just facts. My point that I just want to make is I'd like to go to a vote and see where this is, because I think this amendment is bonkers. But to the NDP, I think it is going to be very up to them as we look at their sort of coalition, where they stand on this. Because quite frankly, for somebody who's been so vocal on preventing homelessness and standing up for people who are our most vulnerable, I sure hope they don't support this amendment that says don't vote for this or don't talk about this in the House of Commons to find solutions.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrari. Seeing no further discussion, Madame Zarrillo on the amendment. Madame Zarrillo.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I wasn't going to speak on this because, this is a political fight between the Liberals and Conservatives, who have both done terrible things over the last 4 decades to cut supportive housing for people. And I wasn't going to speak on it, but I'm really, really at the end of it, of the Conservatives trying to do their little fishing trips where they try to throw out comments about the NDP and myself and then just clip them and send them around. This is a serious issue, and I'm making serious choices as well as my NDP colleagues are, and the Conservatives are not a serious party when all they're trying to do is get clips. I don't appreciate it. I had no intentions of supporting the Liberals' amendment, and I don't appreciate the taunting, the tempting, the bullying. I don't appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Zarrillo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To my colleague, there was no taunting or bullying. And if you don't support that, that's wonderful. But this, again, back to facts, to my NDP colleague through you, Mr. Chair, this has been an agreement that they put in place. This is not some kind of political jargon. There is a supply agreement in place that is propping up the Liberal government. That is just the facts of what is happening. And we are Conservatives, we are in the opposition, and yes, this is a serious topic. And so, no, this isn't bullying. This is the facts of what you signed on to as NDP with the Liberals to give them power. So either you care about homeless people or you don't. That is where we're at right now. And I appreciate it if you do support this motion, and I will work with you fully to do that, to help people who are most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you, Madame Zarrillo. You have your hand up again on the amendment?
I do, Mr. Speaker, and I don't really think that the political conversation is helping people in Canada, and I don't think it's helping residents, and it's certainly not helping the seniors that I saw this weekend, 5 of whom have passed away recently. Their housing was precarious. Their access to medication is precarious. Their health in general is failing due to cuts that the Conservatives brought generationally to healthcare. So I don't really want to get into a conversation like this in committee. This is important work that we need to do. But I think that the Conservatives need to stop being unserious and start being a serious party who takes language and the task of their parliamentary duties seriously, instead of talking about taglines and accusations that they know aren't true. And I am going to say as an NDPer that I'm proud of the work that we are doing to rebuild the safety net that the Conservatives pulled apart over decades in relations to housing, in relations to health, in relations to supporting seniors. I mean, we could have this conversation all day, and I don't want to. I want us to get to the business. So I will reiterate again, I won't be supporting the Liberals' motion, and I'd like us to get to the Ms. Gray's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zarrillo. And I would remind, building on Madame Zarrillo's comment, to keep your comments to the amendment that's before the floor. Madame Chabot? No. Seeing no further discussion then, Madam Clerk, I will call a recorded vote on the amendment of Mr. Fragascatos. D'accord?
Mr. Fragiscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Mr. Coteau? Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
No.
Miss Roberts?
No.
Miss Ferrari?
No.
Mr. Aitchison?
No.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo?
No.
Yeas pour 6, nays contre 5, 5.
The amendment is carried. Now we'll vote on the main motion as amended. Recorded vote on the motion of Ms. Gray as now amended. Call the vote.
Mr. Fragiscato?
Yes.
Sorry, no, no. I missed. No, she had her hand up before I got to it. In fairness to Ms. Gray, I was blocked by the computer screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're kind of not in the sight line here. So basically, this motion right now isn't calling on the committee to take any particular action. So I mean, that's what the Liberals have created here. Now with the amendment, they've taken out, they've stricken taking any particular action from this. It's basically just it's basically just a statement. So I'm not sure what the purpose is that the Liberals wanted to do here. If housing is important, there should be. It's unbelievable, but that they took out us discussing this in the House of Commons. So it's a real shame.
Thank you. Seeing no further Madame Zorillo, on the main motion as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And or Mr. Chair, I just wanted to encourage the Conservatives to ask for an emergency debate in the House. That's what the NDP did, and it was denied. I am concerned that this government is not taking it serious, and I would encourage them to use those tools in the House of Commons to spark a debate. And I'm really disappointed that the NDP, when we did that, asked for an emergency debate on this homelessness. It was denied to us in the House of Commons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zorillo. Seeing no further debate, I'll call a recorded vote on the motion of Ms. Gray as amended. Recorded vote.
Mr. Fragiscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Miss Roberts?
Yes.
Miss Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Yes, for another talking point. Yep.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo?
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0, aucun.
The motion, order committee members, the motion is carried as amended. We will now resume clause by clause. Shall clause 3 carry? Record a vote on clause 3, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Fragiscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen? Yes. Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Miss Roberts?
Yes.
Miss Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Sure.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo?
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0, aucun.
Clause 3 is carried. Shall clause 4 carry? Recorded vote on clause 4.
Mr. Fragiscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Miss Roberts?
Yes.
Miss Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Yep.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo?
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0, aucun.
Clause 4 is carried. Shall clause 5 carry? Recorded vote.
Mr. Fragiscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Miss Roberts,
Yes.
Miss Ferrari,
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison,
Yes.
Madame Chabot,
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo.
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0, aucun.
Clause 5 is carried. Shall the title carry? Recorded vote on the title.
Mr. Fragiscaros,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Collins, Mr. Coteau, Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Miss Roberts,
Yes.
Miss Ferrari,
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison,
Yes.
Madame Chabot,
It's not recorded.
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo.
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0, aucun.
The title is carried. Shall the bill carry? Record a vote.
Mr.
Oh. We have one more. Let me rephrase. Shall the bill carry? We carried the title, right?
Yes, we do.
Shall the bill carry?
Yes.
Mr. Fragiscaros, yes. Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Collins, Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Miss Roberts,
Yes.
Miss Ferrari,
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison,
Yes.
Madame Chabot,
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo.
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0, aucun.
The bill is carried. Before I move to the last part.
Great,
Ms.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, so two things. First of all, I just wanted to comment on this legislation before we finish it up here today. That this is something that will be there for seniors. It brings equity, regardless of the age of seniors. And we had really impactful testimony at committee from a number of seniors on how their lives are affected by the crushing inflation and interest rates. So I just wanted to comment that the work that this legislation does will actually help some seniors. The second thing is I wanted to, before we complete here today, I wanted to table another motion which has been forwarded to the committee and is in order. So I would like to move that pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee invite the Ministers of Employment, Workforce Development and Official Languages, Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, Diversity, Inclusion and Persons with Disabilities, Labor and Seniors, Families, Children and Social Development, and Citizen Services to appear for 2 hours each with departmental officials to testify on the Supplementary Estimate C for the fiscal year 2023-24, and that they appear before the end of the current supply period. And I'm bringing this forth today because I know that there's a number of work that the committee will be doing that will be where we're going to be looking at studies that are coming forth. So this really is the last opportunity in order to bring this forth. And we do know that with the supplementary estimates that there is a timeline that we need to meet in order to meet the current supply period. So that's why I'm bringing this forth today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. The motion is in order. It was received in time. Discussion on the motion of Ms. Gray. Mr. Fragiscatos, you had your hand?
Mr. Chair, the amendment I'm about to introduce would still have ministers appear, be held to account, but do so in a way that's, I think, more conducive to the timeline that this committee has set out in terms of things that it wants to look at and study. So with that in mind, I wish to introduce the following amendment, and I'll speak slowly for translation purposes. That pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee invite the Ministers of Employment, Workforce Development and Official Languages, Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, Diversity, Inclusion and Persons with Disabilities, Labor and Seniors, Families, Children and Social Development, and Citizen Services, to appear for no fewer than 1 hour each, in 2 panels of 3, to consider the supplementary estimates C for the fiscal year 2023-24 and the main estimates for the fiscal year of 2024-2025.
Thank you. Just a moment. Committee members, you have heard the amendment. of Mr. Fragascato, so discussion will move, debate will move to the amendment of Mr. Fragascato. I believe Ms. Ferrari had raised your hand.
Thanks,
Ms.
thanks, Mr.
Gray.
Chair. Yeah, so just for clarity here, so just, you don't want them to appear separately? You removed that word?
Pretty clear. This allows for ministers to come and appear and answer any questions in a way that's, I think, much more conducive to what we're doing as a committee in terms of getting other work through. So we're not saying ministers wouldn't come, quite the contrary, but I think this is just a better way to do it.
I guess what I'm trying to clarify here is if by removing the word separately, it feels like they wouldn't have to testify individually.
Well, we've seen that before. There's a precedent for that here.
But why? But my question through you is, why would we want to do that? The whole point is to interview each minister individually and separately with regard to their file.
Chair, if I could, through you. Again, we've seen that many times at this committee. It's common practice at other committees. This would allow for ministers to be asked questions. In fact, ministers whose files overlap as well. And so instead of having a situation where questions get asked and aren't able to be answered because the relevant minister isn't present, one might be asked a question, but their file doesn't directly relate to the matter that's being put forward. Instead of, waiting and delaying to get that answer from the department, the minister can be there in the same panel to take up the issue that's been put on the table, so to speak. So I think that's just one reason. There's other reasons, but I think this, and it goes back to what I said before as far as other reasons. The time, we would have, this allows us for, as a committee, to take up, to do our responsibilities around the estimates. The way that the original motion was worded, this would eat up a huge amount of time and not really get us to where we need to go as a committee in terms of carrying out our other obligations to look at other matters.
Into that note and sort of precedents, which I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest with you. I think just because something's been done a certain way doesn't mean you need to reevaluate it, because if it's not working, which clearly this government isn't, I think you got to change things. But I think to the members' point through you, Mr. Chair, we need 3 panels of 2 for 1 hour each that we had last year, which was this member's own precedent. That would be my feedback there.
Thank you. On the amendment, Ms. Gray has the floor on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on the amendment that the Liberals just put forth was to, just so that we're clear, was to, within 1 hour, to have 3 ministers. So how this plays out, and we've seen this at this committee, is each minister, gives their opening statement for roughly 5 minutes. That we're now 15 minutes in. That's only 45 minutes to question 3 ministers. And when you time it out, looking at the time of intervention, that's 2 line of questions. 2 line of questions. So that means that you literally, if you had a few questions to ask one minister, there's one minister that doesn't even have that won't even get asked questions because we only have 2 lines of questions. So this is not open. This is not transparent. And each one of these ministers have large portfolios. When you look at what these ministers, we're looking at seniors, we're looking at all of the services that the government does. We're looking at, we're looking at housing, we're looking at disabilities. There is a number of topics here, and we're going to be able to ask, a few minutes of questions to one minister. It's really, and this isn't this is how we bring forth the voices from all the stakeholders that we meet across Canada, from people in our communities, and even from all of our colleagues. There's 4 on this side. We're only going to get 2 lines of questions. That means that 2 colleagues on this side won't even have an opportunity to ask one of the ministers a question. So this is a real egregious affront to for accountability and for us to be able to ask ministers really important questions that we hear from people all the time. This is the opportunity for us to delve into their portfolios And you know, just allowing 1 hour with 3 ministers really doesn't allow us to do that. And it's really, it's a real affront to accountability and transparency.
Great, Madame Chabot, sur le moment.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So even if I don't have this amendment right now in front of me, I understand that we're trying to relive the same formula that we've already been through before, having several ministers present at once. For my part, I've had to make certain choices about the issues. I would suppose that we should keep these separate appearances and hear the minister separately. And perhaps 2 hours is a lot, considering the time that we have left to us, and other bills will have to be studied by this committee. We have a lot of motions before us, and we're also meeting tomorrow. So meeting the ministers, of course, is important, especially before the budget. But perhaps 2 hours each is a little lengthy. And perhaps that could be shortened down to 1 hour each. So should I present another amendment or a sub-amendment?
Are we? You're making a sub-amendment
Non,
to the
un
amendment?
sous-amendement à la principale.
A sub-amendment to the main amendment, I think, motion.
On the amendment of Mr. Fragascatos. Are we clear?
Non.
No. You can.
No?
Okay,
Non, je veux faire un amendement à la proposition de Madame Gray.
I want to do an amendment to Madame Gray's amendment.
Make it after we deal with this amendment of Mr. Fragascatos.
J'ai pas de traduction, monsieur. Oui. Oui.
Okay.
Oui.
We have Mr. Long on the amendment of Mr. Fragascatos. We're still on the amendment of Mr. Fragascatos. Mr. Long?
Can we suspend for 5 minutes, Chair?
Sounds like a great idea. We'll suspend for, we got time here, it's important. We'll suspend for 4 minutes. Suspend. Mr. Long. Mr. Long, you have the floor, and the debate was on the amendment of Mr. Fragascatos.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose a sub-amendment, please, to Mr. Fragascatos' amendment.
Okay.
And I'll read, after and citizen services, to appear for no fewer than 1 hour each in 3 panels of 2, to consider the supplementary estimate C for the fiscal year 2023-24 and the main estimates for the fiscal year of 2024-25. So again, instead of 2 panels of 3, the sub-amendment would call for 3 panels of 2. So there would be 3 1-hour panels with just 2 ministers. If the opposition wanted to gain a little more time, we could cut out the opening statements.
Clearly, once more, read your sub-amendment in the record. You have it?
Yeah.
Okay. Slowly, if you could.
After citizens services.
And we're referencing you're amending the amendment of Mr. Fragascatos.
It's a sub-amendment for Mr. Fragascatos.
You are in order. Proceed.
Okay. After citizen services, to appear for no fewer than 1 hour each in 3 panels of 2. To consider the supplementary estimates C for the fiscal year of 2023-24 and the main estimates for the fiscal year of 2024-2025. Thank you.
Okay, the debate now moves to the sub-amendment of Mr. Long. Discussion? Going once, twice. I'm going to go to a vote on the sub-amendment of Mr. Long. Seeing no further discussion, clerk, call or record a vote on the sub-amendment of Mr. Long.
Mr. Fragascatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
This one's for Wayne Long, sure.
Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
No.
Ms. Roberts?
No.
Ms. Ferrari?
No.
Mr. Aitchison?
I guess not. No.
Madame Chabot?
No.
Ms. Zorillo?
No.
So yeas pour 5-5, nays contre 6-6.
Okay, the sub-amendment has been defeated. It returns us to the amendment. Amendment of Mr. Fragascatos. Seeing no discussion on, Mr. Fragascatos, on your amendment.
Again, to my colleagues, the concern is that this would take up so many meetings. We'd be devoted, well, I mean, if Mr. Aitchison is saying that he doesn't want to look at housing matters, I suppose he's now on record saying that. But we can look at that. There might be other colleagues who want to put very worthy issues on the table, Mr. Chair, to deal with the broad mandate of this committee. I think we've proposed something on this side that works as a compromise. There's various things that this committee could look at, and if we devote ourselves to this particular motion of Miss Gray, then we are putting ourselves in quite the bind, I think, preventing us from looking at all the other matters that this committee can take up. We don't have that many more meetings, in fact.
Mr. Frag, okay. Did you conclude, Mr. Fragascatos?
Well, I suppose if I could say one more thing, what if we made them 1 hour each?
Now we're on your sub-amendment. You're on your sub-amendment. I'll go to Mr. Coteau on the sub-amendment. Sorry, excuse me, on the amendment.
Yeah, just for information, considering, we are talking about time as a potential issue. Can the clerk just explain to us how many, studies, how many meetings, because in March, for example, we're here for 1 week, right? but just our timeline or what our schedule looks like long-term from now till June.
I have to bring relevancy to the amendment that's currently under discussion. We can do that on
Can I
committee
try?
business.
Oh, you know what? And I won't argue over it, but I mean, like, if one of the issues is that this is going to take up a lot of our time through the committee, like it's going to take up committee time. I just want to see if it actually fits into what we're trying to achieve with our other commitments. That's all. I think that's a fair question.
Thank you, Mr. Coteau. I will restrict debate to the amendment of Mr. Fragascatos. Mr. Collins, you had your hand up on the amendment?
I was going to move what Peter suggested earlier, and that is 1 hour each.
Okay, so we're clear here. There's been a number on it. Right now. So could you just clarify your sub-amendment?
I think Peter's suggestion was 1 hour per individual.
So you have 6 ministers, which would be 1 hour for each one. Am I correct on what you're interpreting?
Yeah.
And you're making that as a sub-amendment?
I would.
Okay. So Mr. Collins has made a sub-amendment that the committee invite the referenced 6 ministers to appear for 1 hour each, constituting 3 two-hour meetings. Mr. Collins, did I paraphrase you correctly?
Chair.
Just so everybody's on the same page, can we just have that read out, just so there's no confusion?
Yes, but I would need to confirm with Mr. Collins what his change.
You would have to confirm and declare that your amendment would remove the reference to in 2 panels of 3.
Yeah, I don't think the math works if it's 1 hour each.
Not really.
2 panels of 3? No, because how many ministers do we have?
Yeah, maybe.
Just so we're clear, so Mr. Collins, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Collins' amendment would bind the committee to have 3 two-hour meetings, inviting the 6 ministers as reference for 1 hour each. 1 hour each in those meetings. So we have to capture that. I want to get the language before I get to Ms. Gray. And I'll read back into the record. Each minister would be solo for 1 hour. How does it? Un moment, madame.
One moment, Mrs. Shepard.
I'm going to ask the clerk to read her understanding of Mr. Collins's sub-amendment.
So I'll read just the entire motion. From my understanding, so that pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee invite the Ministers of Employment, Workforce Development and Official Languages, Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, Diversity, Inclusion and Person with Disabilities, Labor and Seniors, Families, Children and Social Development, and Citizen Services to appear for no fewer than 3 panels of 2 hours each, for 1 hour each, to consider the supplementary estimate C for the fiscal year 2023-2024 and the main estimates for the fiscal year of 2024-2025.
Before, am I confirming Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins, just a moment. Mr. Collins, is that clearly articulates Okay.
Each minister is here for an hour, over 3 meetings.
Okay, so now the discussion is on the sub-amendment of Mr. Collins, which would request 6 ministers to appear for 1 hour each over 3 meetings of 2 hours. Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify that that was each separately. Because we had that in the original motion and now that's how it does read, and that's the assertion that each minister would be separate.
Okay, so they were going to appear separately.
That was removing Mr. Fraguscato's amendment.
Yes.
Was saying, so I just wanted to clarify that.
It was removed in Mr. Fraguscato's amendment.
You're asking me, Chair, what I think. Yeah, I think we've reached a compromise here.
So we're clear, it would be 3 2-hour meetings with 6 ministers appearing separately for 1 hour each over those 3 meetings.
Yes.
D'accord?
Okay, we're ready.
Merci. Oui, madame? I'm seeing.
Yes, ma'am.
I do not wish to exclude you. You're not in the room. You're following the discussion. I'm seeing nodding heads. So that'll make a recorded vote quickly. Madam Clerk, a recorded vote on the sub-amendment of Mr. Collins.
Okay, Mr. Fraguscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Yes.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo?
Yes.
So yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0, aucun.
Now the main motion as amended. Seeing there's consensus on it, recorded vote on the main motion as amended.
Mr. Fraguscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Yes.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zorillo?
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0, aucun.
Put a little work, Ms. Gray, you got your motion carried. Thank you. Mr. Long, before we go, we still have we have one procedural item left on the bill. Did you want the floor? Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'd like to table a motion previously put on notice. Everyone should have received a copy. I can read it. If you'll allow, Chair. Thank you. That pursuant to Standing Order 108-2, I'll just hold on, Chair. It seems like members opposite don't have it. It was put on notice. Yep. Okay. Start again. That pursuant to Standing Order 108-2, the committee undertake a study on the compensation disparities between unionized and non-unionized workers in Canada. The study will examine the reasons that unionized workers receive more powerful paychecks, the impact of unionization on benefits and pensions, and the reasons behind such disparities. That the committee invite to testify included but not limited to representatives from Statistics Canada and subject matter experts, that the committee hold a minimum of 2 meetings, and that the committee report its findings and recommendations to the House, and that pursuant to Standing Order 109, the committee requests that the government table a comprehensive response to the report. And Chair, I just will say, I'll give you a little bit.
Before we get, the motion is in order, so proceed, Mr. Long.
Okay, thank you. I just want to give you a little bit of context. I grew up, and my father worked at a lumber mill in St. John. My mom didn't work, and she worked looking after us. She wasn't in the outside workforce. But what I learned quickly was that we didn't have the same benefits that some of my dad's friends had that were unionized. And I was just a kid growing up. But like my dad never had a pension plan. He was basically minimum wage. There were no benefits. He was diabetic. There was no health benefits or anything like that. And, you know, we grew up just kind of accepting that's how it was. But, you know, as I got into my teens, I realized that where he worked wasn't unionized. And there really wasn't somebody that spoke on their behalf. It was a great job, but I quickly realized that a lot of his friends that were unionized had different benefits that we had. So this study is important to me, and I hope all of my colleagues around the table will support it. Thank you.
Madame Chabot, vous la parole.
You have the floor, Ms. Chabot. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I would have all the reasons in the world to support this motion, but I don't understand the objective of it. What Mr. Long is trying to say is something that's already been shown. There are a lot of studies that show that in a unionized environment, generally, workers have more benefits and get better pay. So, that being said, I read and reread the motion, but where are we going with that? Is it demonstrating something? That's my question. I don't really know what we're trying to get at, showing something that's already been shown. You know, with the great number of studies about this. Sometimes we conduct a study because we want to do research and make recommendations. But here I'm trying to understand where this will bring us.
I'll answer that, Chair. I think MP Chabot saying, you know, showing something that's already shown. I think the purpose of the study, again, is to reinforce the impact that unionization has, and that unions do fight for the middle class, and unions do fight for wages that help everybody, all workers. So I think it's an important study, and I would appreciate Madame Chabot's support. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, you have, where did it go? You have the motion as introduced by Mr. Long. I'll call a recorded vote on the motion of Mr. Long.
Mr. Fragiscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Yes. Mr. Cotto?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Yes.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zarillo?
Yes.
Yeas pour 11-11, nays contre 0 aucun.
Motion adopted unanimously. I think the air has changed in the room. We still have, it's not cold, it's quite, the last item to carry on the bill is, shall the chair report the bill to the House? Seeing no discussion, a recorded vote on that, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Fragiscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Cotto? Yes. Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Aitchison?
Oui.
Madame Chabot?
Oui.
Ms. Zarillo?
Yes.
Yeas pour 11-11, nays contre 0 aucun.
So that dispenses with the legalities around the bill. Okay. With that, we still have a bit of time, committee members. I wish to advise the committee that I've had to make a slight change on the subcommittee to Wednesday evening for 1 hour. Had I already, maybe I didn't establish a Tuesday. The subcommittee of HUMA will meet on Wednesday from 7 to 8 o'clock. It's the time that we can get the services available. I have to have interpretation services, madam. 7 to 8 to review the growing list of items before the committee's agenda. So that's scheduled at that time. Subcommittee from 7 to 8 will forward you the room number, but I have the resources to do it, as well as translation services available. As you know, our next meeting will be on Thursday, February the 29th. Seeing, does anybody have anything else before the committee at this time? If not, is it the wish of the committee to adjourn? Seeing nodding heads, everybody happy. The airs remain the same. So we shall adjourn. Thank you, committee members. You've put a lot on your plate. Committee adjourned. Miss anything?